Welcome back for another video. I'm Eharbad, a free-to-play endgame player in Raid Shadow Legends. Today we're going to look at an auto comp for stage 21 of the Skinwalker faction. There are quite a number of ways of approaching this. One thing I'd say is absolutely critical is to have a block buffs champion. Here I am using Basher, but in fact Mighty Uko would be perfect for this role as well. And maybe I will try tweaking this team with Mighty Uko in place of Basher at a later stage. My Uko is not yet built. I'll probably be doing it in the CBC starting this week. There's also champion training overlapping, so I'll probably look to rank up Uko during that. Anyway, let's jump into a run and see how the team that I currently have plays out. So I don't actually have an AoE decreased defense. I am relying on the AoE damage majority coming from Leoris with a little bit of help from Norog. Norog is also there for a secondary block buffs champion. In wave 2, as Leoris has already used both of his AoEs, we have Basher going there with the skill cooldown just to make sure that all the enemies get killed. Even if they take a turn, it's not going to be a problem. We won't get the unkillable up on Paragon because his skill will be on cooldown. The aim then is to open with the block buffs. We do want the block buffs to land on the boss to be ideal. And then everyone will use pretty much A1s for the first set of attacks. The boss will then do the exchange. That will ensure that we don't have buffs for the boss to steal, but also we can't receive any negative debuffs from the boss either. And then basically it's a straight nuke, us versus the boss. And in terms of how quick this run is, it very much depends on whether we get lucky and manage to kill the boss before the HP exchange takes place, as we did just then. So 1 minute 22 seconds. Actually, again, a new fastest time. It seems funny that each time we're doing these videos, we're actually getting a new fastest time. My old fastest time was about 1 minute 30, so it's a small gain, not huge, but a little bit of a gain. It's good to get anyway. We'll just run it one more time so you can see again what happens. And then I'll show you the AI overrides, and then we'll try and build a more accessible version. So we'll swap out Leoris, we'll swap out Norog and Brachus. So we'll just keep Fane and Basher, and then we'll put in a couple of other champions to try and kind of replicate a similar situation to what we have here. It won't be quite as quick, but it should still be auto-friendly. I do think I could probably speed this up a tiny bit, even above what it currently is. Once I finish building Ragash, having a second champion with a strong AoE hit would mean that I will kill the waves faster. I think the waves are the area where I could definitely speed this run up significantly. And then between Fane and Leoris, I'm getting good damage done on the boss. Brachus is really just there for the increased attack, to be honest. He's not even booked, and he doesn't do that good damage for me, partly because he's not booked, and unfortunately here we've taken a block buffs on ourselves. And actually that makes me think that maybe I shouldn't open with block buffs with Basher, because ideally I don't want the boss. Let's actually cancel out. And let's change that live right now. If we go to Basher, keep the AI override like that, but we'll just open with an A1. I think this should actually work even better than what I had previously. The idea being that we won't take the block buffs back on the first cycle on the exchange, and instead we'll be able to buff ourselves. My only concern is that the block buffs will run out for the second buff exchange. Have to see. I don't want to delay it 2 turns. Possible. We'll see, because my basher's pretty quick, so we might actually still cycle back round, apply it again before boss takes next turn. This way we're getting the full benefit of the increased attack. Elf swap there. We do get back block buffs. Slight issue being that we then will receive the block buffs for longer, but at least you can see kind of what happens. We probably won't 3-star it, where we run quite an aggressive setup. A less clean run than the first one, but if you're really trying to go for the best possible times, that's kind of what you have to do. Now, I could make this a more stable team, and I have previously. All I do is swap out Brachus for Steel Skull. That gives me a little bit of healing, a little bit of sustain, and that's all that's required to make it completely consistent. But I like to try and get a fast time, push the tempo if I can. So I tend to be a bit more risky, shall we say? Right then, if we're going to change the team composition, which we are, as I mentioned, what are we going to do? We're going to keep Bane in. We'll bring in Fleshmonger. We'll keep Basher. I'm just trying to see who has a usable defense or HP. Probably go for defense from Steel Skull. Then, I mean, really, it doesn't really matter who the 5th one is. It could be Horfeast, could be Greybeard, could be Nullhorn. The kind of a lack of AoE damage here. We'll go for Horfeast. Alright, once we have them set up, what I'm going to do is Opener, Stinging Blast, not use, then Opening, Stinging Blast, open with block debuffs, and I'll disable the A2. Rather try and get the weaken on. Steel Skull. So we don't need to use protection during 1. On the boss, I'll probably open the A1 to keep the heals after the boss takes a turn. And I don't really want him boosting our defense until after the boss has taken a turn. In terms of Fleshmonger, I think we can just leave him on auto. Fane, we can leave on auto, and we'll just leave it on full auto. Simply put, Fane is going to open up against the boss by attacking the ads anyway. And then if we look at Orpheus, we want him to open against the boss. Probably want him to buff our attack and crit rate beginning of each of round 1 and 2. That should be good. See how that plays out, and then if we need to make any adjustments. It will be slower. Like, the biggest improvement that I can make to this team is to have an AoE damage dealer. Since we don't really have one, we're going to be relying on Feign to basically single target. Kill each individual enemy. But yeah, like, if we could swap out either Fleshmonger or Horfeast for an AoE damage dealer, then it would be considerably better. Okay, so we then get the cooldown skills off, so we know we won't have to deal with any unkillables. We again get the increased attack coming from Horfeast. Ideally, Horfeast would actually be faster within the team. Seems to be a little bit on the slow side, so we're not getting that increased attack before Feign and Fleshmonger go. So that's another area of optimization that could improve the speed of this as an auto comp. But it's really, I just wanted to get some kind of accessible auto comp in place. You could see overall the kind of thought process, and you could equally figure out how it would be worth kind of making improvements or adjusting to your own roster. The important parts are we need some kind of damage for the boss, we need some kind of block buffs to stop on the debuff and buff exchange to stop the boss getting those buffs from us. And that's kind of it for this stage 21. There's not that much else we need. It then becomes a combination of overall damage, a bit of RNG, particularly in whether if you have a really high damage comp, you can avoid the boss doing the health exchange quite often. We get the debuff buff exchange. We took quite a lot of damage ourselves. Quite important to have the decreased attack on the boss. Hopefully we'll get a heal from Steel Skull in a second. Lost Fleshmonger, doesn't really matter, but we also have the revive from Tusk, so again, not too much of an issue. Very much reliant on Feign here to do the damage. Big question is, can we avoid HP exchange? We've got half a chance. Kind of needed Feign to get an extra turn for it to be realistic. Anyway, we will beat the boss within the 12 turns. Confident about that. It's no it's no sub 2 minute run, but I also don't have a wave clearer in this team. You'll have to forgive me for that. We got it done. 5 minutes. Runs a full auto with a very budget team. As I mentioned, if we could swap out Orpheus and just bring in another sort of wage damage dealer, I mean, a good candidate would probably be Cleopteryx, since we all get her, and she does do good damage. I actually have not pulled mine as a fragment champion. Maybe I'll do it at some point during a CVC, and then I could build her out and showcase that. But in the meantime, maybe I'll just throw in Norog, and we can see kind of how it goes with this last set of keys by having a kind of at least a damage dealer who can do some AoE hits. See if we can get closer to maybe the sort of 3 to 4 minute area. Well, let's just see how this one plays out, and then I'll come back at the end of the run. There we have it. A little bit quicker, but to really get those fast times, we still need more DPS. I would like to try it with Cleopteryx, but I don't have her built. I don't even have her pulled, so there's not much I can do about it. But maybe someone else in the comments can tell us what kind of times they're getting with Cleopteryx. In terms of builds, if we look at the original team, obviously Leoris is my main arena nuker, and I also use him to farm various other parts of the game, such as Minotaur and normal Doom Tower. He is built pretty well, just over 200 speed, 6.2k attack, 150 crit damage in Savage, and in terms of masteries, we are down at Helm Smasher, and then kind of classic arena masteries. At some point, I'm going to assign the Blessing. That will give us another 500 attack, since I have managed to buy him up to 2-star Blessing. 2-star on the Awakening, rather. That is Leoris. Fane is built for my Bat Eater. Total stats, 6.8k attack with 170% crit damage. Now, the reason I've stacked the attack so high is at the time I did not have the gear to get Fane into crit damage gloves in Relentless, and this was the best balance I could do in terms of DPS. I could actually rebuild her with crit damage gloves now, but why bother? It's basically the reality. She does the job everywhere I need her to, so I haven't bothered. Got a 3-star Awakening, could add some Blessing on here, that would probably speed things up as well. Particularly actually adding the Blessing on Leoris will probably speed things up as well in addition. Masteries down to War Master, and I do have Retribution, which you saw coming in handy during the boss fight. Basher I use in PvP, so it's my arena build, high accuracy, high speed. The skills are done, Blessing also not set currently, and in terms of masteries we are down at Eagle Eye. You don't need Basher to be built particularly strongly for this auto comp. Having him as a 50 would be fine, he's really just there for the block buffs. And as I mentioned, Mighty Uko would actually be even better for the role, bringing much more to the table, including a reliable decrease attack on the A1. Fleshmonger is built for Rare Secret Room, the Rare Attack, and the Rare Magic Secret Rooms in a stun set. In terms of skills, they are done, and masteries down at Fearsome Presence. Obviously, this is not an optimum build for this particular faction. Crypt is built quite squishy, but mostly it's just there for the debuff and the stun set in the Rare Attack. I have at least got him to 100% crit rate, but the attack level and crit damage are pretty low. At some point, maybe I will re-gear him and try and get a bit more damage into the build. Steel Skull, pretty basic gearing, nothing special. Just went for a decent amount of HP, reasonable speed, and enough accuracy to land the poisons. The skills are done and no masteries exist. Tusk is in a regen set, again pretty budget build overall, not super fast, decent amount of HP, and there are no masteries, but in terms of the skills, those are booked. And then lastly, Brachus in a mismatch of a set, doesn't get a lot of love, but has a decent amount of damage overall, nothing special, 4.7k attack and 200% crit damage. The skills, as I mentioned, are not done, and in terms of masteries, he does have masteries down to Giant Slayer. And that's that. Those are all the champions we used in today's video. As I mentioned, I do think Geopteryx would be a good way to go. And who else could really add a bit of AoE damage? Temesia would also be very strong. Coronar would be viable as well. If we look at the epics, there's not great AoE damage really coming in here. You could maybe build the bear up and try and get a bit of damage coming on this A3, but it's really not worth it. The reality is, in terms of really good AoE damage, you've got Ragash, you've got Leoris, and you've got Cleopteryx. So it's really going to be one of those three, or Temesia. So yeah, you could say 4. And you kind of, if you want a fast team, you want one of those. I haven't actually had any real vision on what Snickchark looks like in terms of damage dealing. So maybe he's viable, but usually HP champions don't hit super hard unless they have some kind of unique double hit mechanic, such as Magna. So I think that kind of covers everything in terms of block buffs. Basher, Norog, or Uko are all viable. Uko here on the A2 will consistently put that block buffs on the boss. Probably need Uko running around, I'd guess around 250 to try and 4-3 the boss would be viable. And like I said, maybe when I get Uko built up, I'll give that a go. So yeah, hope that kind of gives you an idea about how to structure an auto comp for where you have this buff debuff exchange mechanic with the HP swap. We're looking for ideally decrease attack on the boss, block buffs on the boss, to have not too many buffs on our own team, and if we do have them, to have that AI override to delay them, try and get them synced up that we're getting to use them, and the boss isn't getting to steal them. Yeah. Bit of a rambling video, not the most coherent of the videos I've done, but that's that for today. Hope that has helped. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye for now.